Welcome to our Sunday meditation service. Today we're going to be doing Satanama. When you do it, you go to Sa, Ta, Na, Ma. Sa is the beginning, infinity. Ta is life, existence, and creativity. Na is change and the transformation of consciousness. Ma is rebirth, regeneration. Satanama, Sa-ta-na-ma, is so primal that its impact on our psyche is like splitting an atom. The power of this mantra comes from the fact that it rearranges the subconscious mind at the most elementary level. It has the power to break habits and addictions because it accesses the level of the mind where habits are created. It also helps people that are forgetting things to get your mind back really functioning in full capacity. So we're going to do Sa. Here we go.
Good morning, everyone. Just would like to remind you that following our second service today at around 12 noon, we have our ministers meeting on Zoom, and you can get the code to that by emailing info@unityofboulder.com. This morning, I'm going to share the most mind-healing prayer and what it means. That most mind-healing prayer is, let it be. Let it be. And I'm going to be sticking very close to my notes this morning because these are notes I took down early this morning when I got up. The talk that I had planned for this morning was no longer viable, Spirit just brought into my awareness another point of view to be shared this morning. So there must be people that are tuning in who will be needing to get this particular information. Possibly the most popular Bible quote, I don't know if it's popular, but it is the most known Bible quote, is, "Judge not that you be not judged. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back." Judge not that you be not judged. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. This particular truth, the Master is relating, is it not about giving up discernment of circumstances altogether? It's about giving up any personal projections of condemnation or guilt. But when it comes to the discernment of circumstances, that is a transforming process. For as we continue on the spiritual journey, the awareness that used to rely on ego-centered discernment based on the foundation of separation, the illusionary foundation of separation, it is slowly replaced as the divine consciousness rises within us. And then it becomes more and more intuitive discernment, which is so much more effective and powerful. But again, the one thing that the Master's teaching is relating to us is completely relinquish all personal condemnation, all personal guilt and projection of guilt. And that is going to be the necessity in order to live in and from the enlightened awareness. So the ultimate prayer, let it be, we may withdraw from circumstances that are not in keeping with, what we can tolerate or what we feel is just and true and harmonious. We may withdraw from limited negative circumstances, but we do not condemn them. What we do is we let them be what they are, and we let them be what they are not. Now there's a reason for this, because our reality lies in the truth that circumstances are one with us. They rise with us. And to the degree that we see that truth, we allow them to be what they are or what they are not. And in doing that, we bring peace to our own mind. And by bringing peace to our own mind, we bring peace to the collective mind of being, of which we are all a part. The reality of our oneness is understood, and it is used in this way to accept, let it be. That is our calling on the spiritual journey. How can we consider the all-healing attitude, let it be, as the all-healing attitude? Because in truth, all minds are one. And healing peace can be bestowed by the unconditional acceptance of any part of that whole awareness. It can be bestowed by any one mind, which is part of the entire collective consciousness of humanity. Now, if you're not used to hearing this, it may be difficult, because having operated from the ego-centered perspective of separation for so long, it seems absolutely beyond reality to think that somehow or other all minds are in communication. But that happens to be the truth that the masters of life and the teachings of the masters of life are leading us to embrace. And so we don't necessarily leap into that understanding. It is a journey, and along the way we are relinquishing the limited perspective of the ego-centered intellectual point of view that holds us separate and apart from that which we look upon. But at some place in one's evolution, we look upon only the greater oversoul, or the self of all being, or the one in all and the all in one. Seeing that, recognizing that, brings healing not only to the mind but to the body, not only to the one mind and one body who's viewing it, but to every other body and every other mind. I want to share with you this first PowerPoint, which is the Master's way of relating this surrender of the illusionary interpretation of self. You can read this in Matthew 18:1. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, "Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." It doesn't take very much contemplation of this particular scripture to realize that it is all about the relinquishment of the ego-centered, illusionary idea of life, in which personal greatness is being related by the disciples. Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? But Jesus, the Master of life, the living Christ within us all, brings up the truth. Unless you become like children who have not yet developed that ego-centered perspective of understanding the right and wrong of things that appear to them to be separate, unless you understand, like the child who is only present in the now moment, having no past grievances, no projected future necessities of being, just presence. Unless you return to that presence, you cannot enter the consciousness divine or the kingdom of heaven. This is the main truth of the Master's teaching right here. So the disciples, those who would seek greatness on a personal level, are still caught in the illusionary projection of separation and the necessity for specialness. But what is being related here very clearly defines another truth, defines that to become like a child, humble like a child, free of the perceptions of the limited, outer-directed, personal ego mind, free of that, you live in the enlightened awareness, moment to moment to moment, operating in full, complete oneness with God. Of course, when he speaks about a child here, he's speaking about a true child. He's not talking about children who have already been steeped in, the television programs and the video games that project the whole concept of condemnation, of revenge, and of might is right. Try to understand the true child of that time was not exposed to the limitations in this particular mad society, driven towards specialness and bringing out resentment, bringing out revenge in all of the programming that we have in the media today, especially in those video games, where it is projected over and over and over again that personal might is right, not the understanding of the divine consciousness that is present and available to everyone and can be bestowed by anyone. So I'll tell you a story, one of my favorite stories, and possibly it's already been memorized by you if you've been in Unity a while. When I was attending the Bangor Theological Seminary, Norma and I managed a small town and country motel. We cleaned the rooms and we rented the rooms and we did all that while I went to school half a day in the morning, which is what it was, about 8 to 12 o'clock in the afternoon. In that, actually with the Bangor Theological Seminary, I did go to school often in the afternoon as well, now that I think of it. But while managing this hotel, we had a beautiful A-frame window. We lived in this big A-frame and had a big A-frame window looking out on some fields. And there was a little play area that we had set up for our one child at that time, Dell, who was about 3 or 4 years old. And when I came home from school one day, a beautiful sunny day, I saw Dell sitting in a chair, a small chair, looking out the window. And I came up to him and I said, "Hey, how come you're not outside playing?" And he looked at me in a strange way and said, "Because I'm sitting here." That's how much in the now the child mind actually is. And so we're talking about the true child who lives in the moment. And we need to return to that consciousness, but with a little greater depth of understanding that comes from what we call spiritual intuition, which is the guiding light moment to moment to moment. It is being in alignment with the divine spirit. So I'll tell you about a song that never left me. I played the comic relief in the musical comedy South Pacific. And there's a song in that show, not sung by the comic relief, but sung by the lead in that show, that reveals a certain amount of understanding, especially for that time when that show was written, about the 1950s. It was about racial prejudice in children. And the song went like this. These are the lyrics. And it really brought probably the first real insight to me on this level. These are the lyrics to that song. You've got to be taught to hate. You've got to be taught to hate before you are 6 or 7 or 8. To hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be fearfully taught. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. It's got to be taught year after year. You've got to be fearfully taught to hate. It's an interesting star, but it is actually a truth. And if we could ever get to the place where we would actually educate children in divine awareness and allow them to open up to the refined nature of their own soul, they would live more effectively, beautifully, powerfully, and in greater health than they do these days. That's it. What I'm sharing with you doesn't necessarily something you pick out of a book and memorize and try to share with somebody. What I'm sharing with you is the divine understanding that has been shared by masters down through the ages. There is only one presence, one power in all the universe, and it is God, the divine benevolent presence. Consider the extreme emotional judgments that we have today, where we have the lines drawn so clearly in conflict around this coronavirus pandemic. So you have the people now on one side who are refusing to wear masks, who are refusing to do the regulations that some other governors are calling for in order to remain safe and keep safe those people that might be more vulnerable than you. And on the other side of that, you have those people that are going to wear masks. And now children that are thinking about going to school, I've heard parents actually say, my son will never go to school wearing a mask. And on the other side of that, my son will only go to school wearing a mask. So you see the insanity of the world, the insanity of the ego-centered, illusionary idea and definition of life coming from the limited foundation of separation. That must be transcended. Will we ever have a new age? Will we ever be free of the necessity to be right instead of happy? This is our calling, moment to moment to moment. Down through the ages, we have been taught to understand our divinity and to transcend the initial state of consciousness, which has us in the illusion of separation, raised, educated to be oh so right from our oh so clear, separated objective observance of life. Never happened, never can be. We must at some point see the pain and suffering that is generated by that illusion on the collective consciousness of humanity. So A Course in Miracles will speak to it this way. Can we have this next PowerPoint, please? There is another vision and another voice in which your freedom, your true freedom lies, awaiting your choice. And if you place your faith in them, you will perceive another self with a capital S in you. This other self sees miracles as natural. They are as simple and as natural to it as breathing to the body. They are the obvious response to the calls for help, the only one it makes. Miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it does not understand how separate minds can influence each other, nor could they do so. But minds cannot be separate. This other self is perfectly aware of this, and thus it recognizes that miracles do not affect another's mind, only its own. There is no other. Can we take this back again, please? There is another vision and another voice in which your freedom lies, awaiting your choice, if you are ready to choose freedom. And if you place your faith in them, you will perceive another self, the higher, greater self. This other self sees miracles as natural. They are as simple and as natural to it as breathing to the body. They are the obvious response to calls for help that is from anyone, any person, any place, in any condition that seeks to have some help through recognition, through the awareness of healing peace. Even someone is being abrupt and confronting you, or someone is being unjust, they are calling for help from their limited awareness. And they are to be considered there as part of you. And in your own mind, possibly silently, you simply send blessings. You operate from peace and oneness. And in so doing, you heal your whole mind and body, and eventually will be healing all of those around you. Miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it does not understand how separate minds can influence each other. Nor could they do so, but minds cannot be separate. This other self is perfectly aware of this, and thus it recognizes that miracles do not affect another's mind, only its own. There is no other. There is only one mind of which we are all a part. And that mind calls us to the expanded consideration, expanded peace, expanded love of everything we look upon. Because everything we look upon is God. And through opening ourselves to that awareness, we bring about a healing in everything we look upon. Would you have the life abundant, the life of peace, the life of joy? Then simply open yourself through spiritual practice to this awareness. Can I have this final PowerPoint? Open yourself through spiritual practice to this awareness. This is from Guru Wayne, his Indian name, Subramanian, or I am, whatever you might pronounce that. When it's translated to English, it's Wayne. So Guru Wayne. See for yourself if the statement, all is one, is conducive to good or evil. As far as it is true that only that person can be righteous who regards himself the same as he regards others, and regards others the same as he regards himself, how can any evil attach itself to him who knows himself to be others and the others to be himself? Tell me if there is any better way towards that which is good than the knowledge of unity. Certainly other methods cannot lead to as much good as this one. How can anyone love others more than when he considers them to be himself? Regard all as unity. Love all as unity. In truth, all is one. We're going to practice that truth now through our guided meditation. And we'll start with our healing Tibetan bowls and the energy that they provide that raises our own consciousness. But if you don't have a particular healing mantra or technique, you can use this when we get to the period of silence, which is about 10 minutes long. You can use this mantra. There is only one everything, only one. In you, in me, in everything we see, there is only one, only God. as we go forth from this meditation to those places we occupy in time and space. Let us go forth as the divine emissaries that we are, the divine alchemists that we are, taking all seeming negative conditions in the circumstances around us, looking past any judgment, condemnation, or guilt, and simply bestowing the wisdom of blessing, sending true peace, consideration, compassion in our minds until we find that peace within ourselves. And then we will begin to see it making manifest in all those who used to appear to us to be separate. For this opportunity to transcend the illusion of life, let us feel gratitude and share gratitude. To this we say, Amen. And I need to inform you that we had planned to open the physical church structure and bring people in on the 31st. That's next Sunday, the 31st. But the present position of our governor of the state of Colorado is that the churches shouldn't open yet. And so that has been made very clear to us, and we will follow that guidance. But we are planning to do an outside service the following week. We're hoping to be able to do a parking lot service where people will show up on the 7th of June, remain in their automobiles, and receive the Sunday services in that fashion. Again, we are still operating almost completely in this ministry, and we ask you to be considerate and to tithe so that we can continue to do the work that we do here. You'll find that button on your screen that says to give, and you can hit that. Or you can go on to our website, info@unityofboulder.com, and there are a number of ways you can tithe. So thank you for tuning in and for any gifts that you are sending our way. Again, thank you for tuning in. You're still tuning in. And we have our usual closing 5-minute meditation. So enjoy that as well.